How's this week been so far?
Man, it's been hard to process, really. I mean, it's such a big deal. I mean, winning these races are, I knew how big of a deal winning these races were, but I mean, this one was pretty big.
How about all the media?
It's been fun.
Yeah.
I'm pretty busy today. Really haven't had a whole lot yet, other than just a couple different things.
So today's kind of the day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Motor Mouth's a good time last night.
Yeah, that was fun. Yeah.
Those are some good guys on there.
They are. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's go back, man. Let's talk. We've had you on the show several times. I did not listen to any of that stuff beforehand, so I don't know what we've covered and what we haven't. But to people that haven't heard your story, we raced on iRacing, and you were good, and I was okay, and you're still really good, by the way. I was racing in a super late model race with somebody the other day, and they're like, "Man, I race with Josh sometimes," and I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "He's fast." I'm like, "Yeah, he's pretty fast." So you got a great reputation, and you've kind of become. There's like a handful of drivers, real world drivers, that are on the service, and we're probably more sim racers at one point than they were professional race car drivers, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like Majeski and a few other guys, William Byron. You've turned into one of those guys. You're instantly now more recognizable to a lot of the people in the service, and they're going to know that, man, he was discovered on iRacing. You really were. Mm-hmm. It's not overstating that.
Yep.
And so we're racing together, and you were like, we struck up a conversation, friendship, communicated over several weeks, me, you, and a whole circle of other people. That's the great thing about iRacing is the community. And you sent me some videos. We were just BSing after some racing one night, and you sent me some videos of you racing at Nashville in a Legends car. You run the little quarter mile.
Yep.
And you're like, "Yeah, man, I won handful of races, track championship, just me and my dad." Tell me a bit about your parents. Tell me about your dad. Tell me about your mother. Set that up, because that's kind of a...
So I actually lost my mom when I was 13 years old unexpectedly. So it was really just my dad and me and my dad together. She had a heart attack in her sleep, yeah. And so really it was just me and my dad, and we just kind of raced. That's kind of what we did. We didn't really do anything else. My dad owned a restaurant, like a local meat and three type deal, and I remember going there.
What's a meat and three?
I don't know, meat and three vegetables kind of deal. That's what they call it. Yeah,
I've never heard of it.
Yeah, there's not a lot of them around here, because I never really, haven't really been to one here yet. But anyway, so yeah, he did that, and we raced go-karts and stuff, and we did that, when she was still alive, and then she passed away. That kind of put a pretty big, financial burden on us.
How was that like? What did you and your dad do? What was that next year like in y'all's lives? Were y'all like listless? Like when something like that happens to somebody and you lose, somebody such a key figure in the family, did you guys sort of like tie together and say, "Look, man, we're going to figure this out. We're going to get through this together"? Was there like a year of, like wondering like what's going to happen? How did your dad react? I mean, because y'all had to have some sort of conversation, right?
Yeah, I mean, it was hard. I mean, that. I mean, it's hard. I think that racing was kind of what kept us together. It kept us closer. It was it's tough. Like, you don't really know what's next.
Right.
You don't really it makes you look at things a lot differently. And I don't know, it changed my life. And when you get in these moments, you see this happen all the time. I think you can, some people you can go about it two ways. You can accept it and move on and try to become a better person from it and try to learn and appreciate things more. Or you see a lot of people that kind of go crazy.
Right.
You kind of use it as like an excuse. And for me, it was man, it seems like so long ago, but it was so tough. And like I said, really the racing part of it really kept us together.
Yeah.
I think it did, and we had to grow up pretty quick.
Right. So that's another thing that I think it had an effect on you. I think at that age, and that did help you mature to allow you to do some of the things that we're going to talk about in a minute. But you're racing at Nashville Fairgrounds. You're winning races. You send me these videos. when I watched the videos, the one thing that I paid attention to was how you drove your entry and how you rolled the center and how you exited the corner. And I was like, because you had in-car footage.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, this guy knows what he's doing. Like you can tell when people drive shallow on entry and don't know they're doing it, and they just win because they just have a superior car, and it just sort of masks some of the problems or issues they have with their ability, right?
Right.
And I'm watching some of the things you're doing in the corner and thinking, man, it kind of knows what he's doing. And I've always, even especially back then, I've always had this idea that, man, if you know how to put a corner together, I don't care if it's in a real car or on a simulator, it's the same theory. It's the same. You're moving the same pieces around on the table, right? If you drive shallow, it's going to not turn in the middle. It's going to hurt the exit. All those little things, right? You can see that in a simulator, just as you do at the manufacturer simulator, right? Y'all compare lines and throttle and steering and all those things, right? And I always felt like, man, if you're probably, your iRacing is making your Legends racing better, and your Legends racing is making your iRacing better, and all that stuff works together. So I thought you'd be a great sort of test subject, for lack of a better term, to prove to people, because it's still a bit of a upward battle trying to prove to people that iRacing can be used as a legitimate tool.
Yeah.
And it's more than just a video game, right? But this will be a great way to prove to people, like, man, this stuff really can be helpful, and I think you can see talent, right, in guys that are racing on a simulator. So anyway,
so you noticed this in his in-car camera?
Yeah. Anytime you watch somebody's in-car camera, if you're a driver and you watch any in-car camera footage ever at any point, you're absolutely analyzing and critiquing what they're doing, right?
Is that why you had the camera to begin with?
Just I don't know, probably I was like 18 or something. Probably just thought it was cool too.
Yeah.
But
right.
Like that was that point in my life. That was a lot of fun, really, racing back then. Because like I see ever since I moved here and I've been to some of the like the summer shootout and some things like that. It's kind of wild, But really, like the group that we had racing there was like we were all pretty similar age, pretty similar equipment. It wasn't like we had these huge budgets or all this these people with 12 legend cars and stuff like you see nowadays, especially out here. But so it was kind of like a pretty knit group, and we always just we raced really hard, and none of us really liked each other. We just I mean it was what it was. I mean I'm sure some of them guys still don't like me to this day, but it was always really close, and like you would qualify, and then you do an invert, and like you get the pole, and then you got to go back to 6, and it would be so hard to win or something just because everyone was so close, and it was so much fun. I learned a lot about myself in that because, really the fact of the matter is my dad I got to the point where, he would help me, but really it was kind of my decision making on what we did and working on it and maintenance in it and cleaning it, and it really, he helped some, but really it kind of turned it over to me to, if I was going to race, like it was up to me. And, at this point that Dale's discussing about us talking and sharing, sharing, the videos and all that stuff, talking, like I was at a real interesting point in my life because, I was 18. I just graduated high school. I was racing. We really didn't have the money to keep going. We were relying on some sponsorships, some people that helped us out locally. And really I was at an interesting point where I worked at a bank, actually, as a teller. I think we've talked about that before. But I guess I should say I didn't know, with everything that our financial situation and my mother passing away, I was not sure that I, continuing to race like that and putting all this time and money was the right thing for my future. I didn't want to be, I always said, oh, well, should I go to college? Should I, try working and then maybe go back racing at a later time? So we was really kind of at that point. And, that's where he came in. And, I remember it all like yesterday, and I remember going to testing and everything, and like, it went well, like surprisingly well. Even I think I mean, my first race, late model race, was at Motor Mile Speedway, and there was like 32 cars or something. I was like, holy cow! Like, yeah, I mean, it was amazing.
So we ran, we ran a couple races, and the rest is history. You've got 75 feature wins, something like that. What's that? You added a couple more this year already. One of the things that I'll tell people about you is we brought you here. You were mature enough at a young age to move away from Nashville, leave your dad, leave your job, leave all the things that are comfortable. You moved in with my mom and Willie, who you had no clue who they were, right? You lived with them for a little while till you got your feet underneath you. And you even worked in the shop for a while, cleaning parts, tearing cars down, things like that. You've done anything and everything we've ever asked you to do. And a lot of times you bring guys in and you say, all right, you're going to drive this late model car. And, yeah, they learn a little bit about what a part is and they learn the tools, what a 9/16 is, and get me this Allen wrench, and they can do it. They can change a gear maybe, set the toe, and they start learning little things as they go. But rarely do they ever turn into the type of mechanic and manager of a whole program where they can really just kind of take it over. Because when he came in, Willie was part manager. Then it was LW running the program, and we had to provide Josh with some knowledgeable people, and he still has some great guys working in that program, without a doubt, that he will credit to the success and performance of that car, that absolutely have a direct effect on the way the car runs. But Josh is now turned into a guy that can do anything and everything on that car, knows everything about everything, every part on it, knows where it came from, how much it cost, what the program spends, what they're going to do as far as their budget, where they can race, and what they can and can't do. And he's a mentor for these younger drivers that have come through the program. He's responsible for them. We're like, hey, here's your guy this year. Here's your new driver. I was telling Mike before you came in here, I said, you assess them, right? Mm-hmm. And at the end of the year, you're sort of the guy that goes, I think this guy has this much ability, right?
Yeah.
And so it's been a lot of fun. And I was telling Mike also that we're lucky that you've stuck with the plan and you stayed on the gas, right? You've done this for 10 years, going to the late model program, going to the late model tracks and racing week in and week out. A lot of fun. Anybody would love to do it, but a decade of it takes a ton of effort.
Yeah.
How do you sustain that motivation, right? Because if you let off the gas a little bit, you don't get to do what you're doing this year in this Xfinity car.
Yeah.
If you lose that passion, lose that energy, all this doesn't happen. So, and you could have just said, I'm burnt out.
Yeah.
How did you not get burned out?
I think just the amount of just hands-on that I've been with the program, and even here, I mean that's a pretty cool story. Just the fact, if you think back that I worked here, I mean I watched the cars, I cleaned the parts, I learned, and there's just been so many key people that I can think of, like over the course of this time, that's just kind of molded me and probably had more of effect on me than they even realize. Gordon Gibbs, he was here for a long time. He was a shop foreman. He passed away a few years ago, but he was tough on me and pushed me. And then Tony Barkley, he's still here in the suspension room. I mean, he taught me a ton about race, just how to prepare a race car, how to go about it, like how to think, how to stay organized. I mean, he really dramatically helped me. And then, with our late model program, we've had all these guys, but Brian Schaefer, he's been around forever. I mean, he was a crew chief for a Busch car, one at Hickory with Dick Trickle, and he's really been like a second father to me. He's taught me so much about race and gave me so much confidence in myself. And so I guess to answer your question, I think over all these years, I knew I was getting something out of it. I wasn't just for the longest time, I was just kind of learning how to race and how to drive. And then when we started winning all the time, well then learning how to work on the car better. I'm learning how to crew chief the car. I'm more or less crew chiefing it myself when I race. I'm not knocking anybody, but that's just what it's become. That's how our program operates. I set up the car, I take it to the racetrack. It's ultimately my responsibility. So I've learned all these things, and there's been all these people that have helped me along the way. And really, I think I took over the last couple of years, I've just learned so much more I know I've probably mentioned him before, but I'm pretty close friends with Marty Lindley. He's a truck crew chief for Kyle Busch, and they've already won. Well, he won with Kyle and Martin already, and he's pushed me. He's like, he tells me, I talk to him almost every day, and he's like, you can be a crew chief at this level. You are smart enough to do it. You can do it, And it's just so funny how dramatically things have changed in 6 months. When I sat here last time, we had just won the national championship. I'm like, man, that's a huge deal. I left here thinking like, I'm going to be a career short track racer. That's going to be, a very good one. I'm going to, I've done a lot of great things. I wasn't going to quit racing or nothing, but, at this point, I've accomplished a lot of things, and that was a huge deal. And we were coming off this amazing season. And, 2 days later, boom, you hit me with this 12-race opportunity, right? And just my mind right then goes from like, I'm thinking, literally 2 days before that, I'm thinking, that's amazing. We're going to go keep racing late models until, to be honest, whether if I decide that I'm ready to do something else, or if I need to do something else for my family to make a living, or if I want to, because I've had those conversations that at the same time you see these drivers that are, like a Rodney Childers or a Matt McCall or a Richard Boswell, these people that are great crew chiefs now, they had to make the decision, well, I don't want to stay racing too long and not give myself enough time to go up the ladder.
Yeah.
So, those are things I think about all the time, but at the end of the day, I knew as good as we were running and how much fun it was, it was hard to step away from, and I wasn't prepared to do that by any means, but, then this opportunity comes about, I spend the whole, I'm thankful that that it was early enough that I got to spend a lot of time over the winter thinking about it and preparing myself for it and working for it. And, when we first sat down before Daytona, I remember how nervous you were about me not having practice. And I was like, oh, man, it'll be all right. Well, let me tell you, it's hard. It's a lot harder than I expected.
Yeah. Hey, do you want to hear more of that conversation with Josh Berry? Well, listen to the whole podcast, the Dale Jr. Download, available on all major podcast platforms.